There are so many reviews on the internet for this little camera right here, so if you want to hear a video with a bunch of stats, this is not that video. I'm going to be talking about what it's like using this as a fitness content creator and if I recommend it compared to other cameras that I own and have tried. I'm Brady, I'm a personal trainer here and I make fitness content. So for this series I'm doing on Instagram called Chasing Gordon, where I try to beat Gordon Ramsay's marathon time and I document the process. I've used a bunch of different cameras. I'm shooting this currently on a ZV-E1 and I'm talking about this camera today. This is the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. You know it's the 3 because it has the flippy outy screen and the other ones don't. And this one is just, from what I've seen, and probably what you've seen if you're watching reviews of these, it's better than the other versions. So of the cameras that I use, I have an Insta360, the X2, it's an older one. I use a GoPro Hero 11 Black, and then this guy. I feel like I have a good idea of how this compares and stacks up against those cameras. So first I'm gonna talk about my workflow and how this fits in, and then I'm gonna talk about the things that I don't like, then the things that I do. So where does this fit into my workflow? If you're like me, the first videos that I saw of this thing were used for car shots. So rollers, people would put on the back of a car and film like a motorcycle. And that was like the primary use that I was seeing for this camera. But I thought I could probably use that for running videos or fitness videos, and I probably could use the gimbal and all of the features that it has to make my content better than what I was making. I shoot most of my running videos with a GoPro just because it levels out the horizon and it gets rid of a lot of the shakiness of holding something while running. So I thought that this could be a good option for replacing that because it would be clearer, crisper, it has the gimbal built in, but I don't think I'd really recommend using this for that purpose, honestly. So I'll get to that in a bit. For starters, this thing is absolutely tiny. I mean, this is a mini Coke can I'm holding it next to. It's like so small, so light. You can actually stick it in your pocket like the name of it says. A cliche or a quote that you always hear is the best camera you have is the one that you own. But I actually think it's the one that you take with you. So for me, I'm not going to always be taking this chunk of a camera with me. I'm gonna be putting this in my pocket, and if I have an opportunity to get something that would be good B-roll or good for memories, I'm gonna take this out, and like you can take pictures with it and video within seconds. So it's so fast. Next, the gimbal on this thing is really cool, and that shouldn't come as a surprise because DJI, that's what they do. They do gimbals in their gimbal line with the RS2 and the RS3, but then they also have their drones. Like, they are known for having stable cameras. So as you can kind of see, I don't know if you can see that, like, yeah, doing the little snake head thing. So it's really impressive. And to be able to have a gimbal like this with the quality of the camera that you have and be able to have it in your pocket and just pull it out makes it so much easier compared to my experience of using a gimbal. I own a gimbal that is like $250 or something like that. I don't really take it out much because it's such a hassle. To be stuck there and be balancing it is just not fun. So this is a great option for the few gimbal shots you're gonna get. You're usually gonna be close to a subject if you're using a gimbal anyway. So this, I think you can kind of get away with it, especially for social media. One thing about the gimbal that might be interesting to you is it's going to be able to track a shot. So if you are, say, moving, you'll probably want to get that cinematic feel, that cinematic like motion blur in comparison to like a GoPro, which is also really smooth, but it looks pretty like digital. And that's because it's increasing the shutter speed a lot to be able to keep it really stable, to be able to lock the horizon. And it's taking a bigger image and cropping it in so that you're not seeing the whole thing as shaky as it is. You're seeing just the portion of the video that's stable. This thing has a manual gimbal, so it is controlling the camera movement itself. It's not cropping in or anything like that. So for you to get that cinematic look, you're actually gonna need an ND filter on it because you're gonna wanna keep the 180-degree shutter rule. And if you don't know what that is, I put together a Notion document with all the equipment I use, everything you need, and you can find that in the link in the description. Okay, one thing that I really like too is, I don't know if you can see, but this is what's called the follow feature. You can see that it is locked onto me. So as I move it around, it is keeping its eye set on me. This is called the follow mode. So one feature that I really like is the follow feature, and you do that by double clicking, and you can track a certain subject, whether it's a face or an object, and it allows you to be moving around and mobile and not really paying attention and still able to capture a shot. So I did this with my friend Jaden. We were running laps around a track. I double clicked on him and I just moved around and walked. So I didn't have to be focused on him, but it was still framing him in the shot. So that just allows you to control the movement of it, not pay as much attention to what you're doing, and still get a good shot. So I really like the follow feature on it. Lastly, the quality is super crisp. You shoot in D-Log-M and you get 10-bit color, so you can control exactly what it looks like. You get 4K in the horizontal mode, and then you get 3K in the vertical mode, which I thought would be an issue, but the 3K looks amazing as it is. So much more crisp compared to a phone, at least my phone. I haven't upgraded my phone in forever. So the vertical mode looks awesome, and I'm using this for a ton of my B-roll for the Chasing Gordon series. Okay, now moving on to the not so good. I mentioned this before, but I wouldn't use this for running. I still use other cameras when I'm capturing a run and holding something in my hand. And the reason is, and this happened earlier while I was shooting the video, the gimbal camera is magnetized when you close it, but it's only magnetized for the first few seconds. You can't just run around with this and expect it to not juggle around. So if I'm running for like 10 miles and I'm just swinging my arms, this thing is going to be rolling all around. And I have DJI Care Refresh, and I highly recommend that you get that. But for me, I don't want to be carrying this around and potentially ruining any of the hardware just because I would get a better shot than I would with the GoPro. It's just, to me, the trade-off isn't there. So I don't use this for running. And if you are going to use this for running, I would be really careful. You can run with this case that comes with the creator combo, and running with this is fine. It's a little heavier. It just gets kind of sweaty. So in my opinion, it's not something that I really want to be carrying around for a long time, but you definitely could. It just would be a little bit more of a hassle and maybe a reason why you wouldn't take your camera out and record. Another thing is I mentioned that you do need an ND filter if you want to get that cinematic look with the 180-degree shutter rule. But with this camera, it's a pretty tight gap you have when it closes. As you can see, there's only a little bit of space, and I have an ND filter on now, but I haven't found a brand that you can double stack the filters and it still closes. Meaning if you wanted to have an ND filter and then you also wanted to have a black mist filter so that you can get some bloomed highlights and get a little softer of a look, you can't have those both on at the same time. And then if you want to do that and then take it off before you close it, they're magnetized, so then oftentimes you're just like taking off both filters. And I don't really want to be touching my lens constantly. So for me, I leave the variable ND filter on at all times. And then if I want to add some of that blooming, I can do it in post in DaVinci Resolve. Lastly, if you're far from the camera, it does look pretty digital. And I would say that your camera from your phone looks pretty similar. So if you are standing pretty far back from the lens, the sensor is pretty tiny. So to keep you in focus, it's making everything around you in focus as well. So it kind of makes this flat look that you get out of an iPhone. So I think that this thing is best used if you are taking a shot that's close to you. So if you're vlogging or you have a subject in your foreground, this is amazing. And it's gonna create that bokeh effect and make everything look smooth and clear. But if you need to take a video, but you need to stand pretty far back, 10, 15 feet, it's gonna look just like an iPhone. So I don't think that that's a deal breaker at all. I think it's just a limitation of the camera and the lens and the filter size. I think that we can do a much better job of using it to its potential. So I'll talk about it a little bit in my recommendations, but I wouldn't use this as potentially your only way of taking videos. Okay, so all that being said, who do I recommend this camera to? And I'm gonna give it 3 different categories that you might be in. And if you're in one of those, stay tuned. If you have a camera already with an interchangeable lens, so a full frame or crop sensor, and you want to get a camera that can vlog, that can be something you take around with you and carry in your pocket, I highly recommend this. I use it almost as much or probably more than I use the main camera I'm shooting on now. However, an interchangeable lens can't be replaced. I'm using the ZVE1 that I'm shooting on now to shoot stuff for my church, to shoot paid gigs, to shoot photographs. I'm using this for so much more than I could with this, But if you are creating content and you want to be able to get behind the scenes footage, anything else just to supplement the videos, you can take this anywhere. Honestly, no one's gonna look at you weird, or no one's gonna feel different in the way that they do when they see a big camera or a rig. People, when they see that, they freeze up. But if you are carrying this around, it's gonna do a great job. People aren't gonna really look at you or think you're that weird, and you'll be able to get some cool stuff. And it'll look similar and as crisp as stuff I'm shooting on this. If you have no camera, would I recommend getting this over an interchangeable lens camera such as a ZVE1 or Canon or Nikon? I would not. I would say go first with a camera. And the reason that I say that is a lot of times we get locked into this idea that you have to carry a camera with you. You have to vlog and hold it out in front of you like this, but you don't really have to. You could just take an interchangeable lens camera like this and move it around. So instead of just having one static shot like the one I'm shooting on right now, you could set it here and then take a tripod or a mini tripod and move it around and shoot it in a different spot. So you get that feeling of movement that you get with a vlog, and you don't need a specific camera that you use to hold and walk and talk to it. I also don't think that that's the best way to get content, at least for me. So your mileage may vary, but I think that first of all, you should talk about what you're bringing as a storyteller and what value you're bringing. And then second of all, you can think about how am I going to get movement and change my backgrounds using a camera. And then eventually, if you stick to vlogging, which most people don't do, then you can switch to something like this or add it to your arsenal, because who doesn't want to buy more gear? And lastly, and this might be a little bit obvious because I've talked about this already, but if you're looking to buy the Osmo Pocket 3 to replace your phone or another camera during your runs, I would not recommend that. I would say stick with your phone, maybe get a GoPro, maybe get an Insta360 or something like that, just to vary it up, because those are action cameras. Those are built for that. This thing, I don't think it was built to be able to see. You can even see, as I'm even holding this, the camera has popped out a little bit. So, see, now I need to close this thing again. See that it just kind of slides in and out. So all that being said, this thing is not going to be like a workhorse that you can just toss around, or during a 10-mile run or tempo runs. You're not just going to be able to just run with this thing in your hand without thinking about potentially damaging it. So for me, I would stick with a GoPro or an Insta360. This thing is amazing, and I highly recommend this to anyone that is looking to improve their shots of just getting more content, because we're all doing stuff every day. If we carry a camera like this, we can get better moments to add to our videos, better things that don't stop you from living in the moments. So yeah, I'm talking too much, but I think this is a great camera. Not exactly what I intended, but I use it all the time. I shoot most of my talking heads, most of my vlogs, and I'm using this thing every day. So if you have the money to be able to buy it, definitely get it. Get the creator combo. So yeah, subscribe for more stuff like this, and head over to my Instagram to check out Chasing Gordon. Those are going to be posted daily. They're going to be overdone videos all about marathon training, and hopefully they can bring you some value. So see you.